Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Foxworth Theory. I am your host, Eugenia Foxworth. This show is about business, entertainment, fashion, and the arts. And we bring to you movers and shakers from around the world, and we allow them to tell their stories on the Foxworth Theory. Our guest this week is financial consultant Will Roundtree. From homeless to millionaire, Will Roundtree has established himself as a staple in the real estate investment sector. His expertise has garnered him recognition among his peers and those in the community. As the founder of the management services of We Management Services, Will has helped over 1,500 small to medium businesses get access to over $300 million in funding during a 2-year period. He tours the country as a notable financial advisor, author, motivational speaker, mentor, community organizer, real estate investor, and wealth builder. Will's the author of 2 books, Credit is King, Transforming Your Credit into Royalty, and Full-Time CEO, the They Don't Tell You. Will, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for that intro. I appreciate it and looking forward to the interview.
And I with you as well. So let's begin. Tell us about your upbringing in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Oh, wow. So, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, typical Midwest city, blue collar town. And, being born and raised from Milwaukee, I always say it gives you a certain type of grit. uh, you know, Being an entrepreneur, we didn't have an opportunity to actually see the influences of the Puff Daddies and the Jay Z's of New York, or the Dr. Dre's and those individuals in LA. So growing up in Milwaukee, only thing we were surrounded by were D boys, pimps, and gangs, and so you had to have a different mindset. But like I say, because the city was going through its transition like most middle America, predominantly black communities, it's easy to get trapped into the trappings of what those communities show you. And so my parents did a really good job of keeping me sheltered away from that as much as they could. But once I got to my freshman year in high school, they actually sent me to live in Mississippi. So imagine going from a city to moving to a farm in Mississippi on 120 acres with 3 homes. No central air, no, central heat. I personally had to work in the garden, chop firewood. So I was 13 years old. And so I always say I had the best of both worlds because it gave me the city life and it helped me to bred like my work ethic of moving to Mississippi because I'm 13 years old. I'm working in the garden, chopping wood, helping my grandfather, who was also an entrepreneur, by the way, who was the town's carpenter. And so also, I credit my parents. They were both entrepreneurs. And so I will say that I really probably was able to see what entrepreneurship life looked like from my parents, from my grandparents. And it's interesting, I really didn't realize it until probably about 5 years ago that they were more of an influence than they probably even know, just from me being able to watch them always having that, building towards something outside of than just quote unquote the American dream. And so, but yeah, Milwaukee was a city that I always credit that gave me my grit, my work ethic, my drive, my ambition, and whatnot.
Thank you. And I can understand because your name, Roundtree. You're
Yeah.
well rounded. And I was thinking that because I watched you on your podcast to
Oh,
see, and
wow.
I went, the man is really on top of things.
Thank you.
So, why did you leave your hometown for what is now known as Sin City, Las Vegas?
Well, as some of us call it, lost wages, because you will not be able to keep your wages if you come out here thinking you're going to come up as a gambler. And so in 2003, I was, so after I graduated high school in Kosciuszko, Mississippi, moved back to Milwaukee. Just a quick backstory. Didn't really know what I wanted to do, attempted to go to college. That really wasn't for me, even though I was a straight A student in high school. So started working for a company, was making quote unquote good money at the age of 21, worked from 98 to all the way up until 2003. And then one day we went in and there were chains on the door. The company had been sold. So didn't know what I was going to do in my life again from that standpoint. And I was fortunate enough to stumble into entrepreneurship through network marketing. Joint network marketing, didn't make any money, but I did learn personal development. What I always say is what changed my life. And from there, my mentor was building an organization in Las Vegas, Nevada. And, at the time, I'm single, no kids. And he approached me and said, Will, would you be open to moving to Las Vegas and kind of helping to build our organization out there? And so I said, yeah, with no hesitation, literally sold the 6 or 7 items I probably owned back in Milwaukee at the time. He actually loaned me $500 because I didn't have any money, and I bought a one-way ticket and moved to Las Vegas in 2005, and I haven't looked back since.
Love it. Love it. I would sidestep. Is there a gambler there that they still call Jesus? He had long gray hair.
I'm not much of a gambler, so I'm not familiar with that saying. I haven't heard
Uh,
about him on the news, so if he's still here, apparently he's winning.
yes. But he looks like what we see Jesus with this hair. I
Right,
just needed to ask you that.
right.
Um, you encountered many challenges when you relocated to Las Vegas. How did you overcome these issues?
Yeah, we always say that, and so I was fortunate enough to do a TEDx talk back in 2018, and my topic was the power of failure. And I think that what was able to assist me during my journey when I transitioned to Las Vegas is that I never looked at it as obstacles. I just looked at them as events. I looked at them as experiences. And I remember, even thinking that even though it was to some rock bottom, it was a place that sometimes we need to hit, whether it's physically or even just mentally, because now you have nowhere to go but up. And what I attribute my process or my progress or that journey to where I never mentally felt like I was defeated was the personal development that I was able to learn when I was in network marketing. And this is why I often share that 80+% of success is all based upon your mindset. They say when you change your thinking, that's when you'll become successful. And so I just use those experience because now I told myself, now I know what not to do. So, anytime someone is attempting to hit a certain goal or reach a certain point in their life, they have to look at the things that most people or deem as failures as experiences, because now you could take those experiences and say, okay, this didn't work, this didn't work, this didn't work, because eventually, if you stay in the game long enough, it's inevitable that you'll find some type of stride. So I really attribute that to my mindset and never felt like I was poor. I often say that that was probably some of the best times of my life because it was character building.
Yes, indeed. So, with your saying that, I'd like to know what inspired you to help others with repairing their credit and creating financial plans.
Yeah, absolutely. And so prior to moving to Las Vegas, I remember having a mentor who said, "Will eventually credit will become the new dollar." Didn't know what he meant by that at the time, but when I moved to Las Vegas, I quickly found out. I couldn't buy a car without a down payment that was 30% of the vehicle and still had a high interest rate. Couldn't rent an apartment without putting three times the deposit down. We're talking, I mean, that was a down payment on a home. And so they said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. And I got tired of getting the same results. And so as I started to truly learn the power of what credit is, because here's the thing, we've been bamboozled in our community to think that credit is a negative thing. And it's not that credit is negative. It's not that credit cards are bad. It's people who are financially irresponsible, no different than how they are with checks, no different than how they are with cash, that makes credit bad. And so once I really started to learn the power of it and started to study how wealthy people leverage credit through to be able to create assets, I told myself that I have to share this information with people because no one was teaching us this in school. We didn't learn this information in our households through our parents, and so I just wanted to be able to use myself as a vessel to spread this information. No different than if I saw a great movie, I wanted to tell everyone. No different than if I read a great book or went to a great concert. Why not share this concept that was changing my life right in front of my eyes? And why not share it with the world?
Mhm. So, why is the creation of generational wealth so important, especially for people of color?
Well, one of the many things that I've learned, and one of the stats that blew me away, is that the top two ways wealth is passed down from generation to generation is through real estate and life insurance. And we are dead last in both categories. And so let's start with real estate. So we're last in even home ownership. At one point, we're at about 47%. Fast forward, we're actually less than 42%, of the population that makes up homeowners. And so that blew me away because typically wealth transfer takes about three generations, especially in a black community. And one of the ways that starts with homeownership is through, one of the ways that wealth transfer is passed down is through homeownership. But if we're not in position to own the homes, or if we're not savvy enough to understand how owning a home can be a mechanism of transferring that wealth. And then there was another stat that blew me away. And don't quote me on these exact numbers. They say the average wealth for a white household is right around about 170 something thousand. The average wealth for a black household is $17,000. And I said, and we often say, instead of complaining, be a part of the solution. I wanted to be a part of the solution that can help change that narrative, even if I can help move the needle by a half an inch. And so I wanted to go out and teach people about the power of home ownership and really truly letting them know that owning a home is just as easy as going and applying for an auto loan. It's easier to get approved for a home than a credit card. And once we understood that process, then understand how that home can help to create some form of wealth, and then started teaching people about concepts when it comes to understanding how equity works. See, if my great grandmother my great grandparents had purchased a home and they owned it outright by the time I was an adult, that home could be worth 300,000 or $2-3 million, depending on where they purchased it throughout the country. And that wealth is now passed down from generation to generation. And so we had to start learning these concepts. And as I started to learn them, I wanted to be able to share that. And that's why it was important for us.
Thank you. And I agree with you so much because of the field that I'm in. But right now, let's take a short break and we will be right back with our very special guest, Will Roundtree.